Welcome back, live from Just King's World on my hip hop ish. We present to you Dope Read. Dope Read is a series of books that we are highlighting, mostly from the hip hop community, but we're going to highlight books from all over the place, books that elevate your mind and thought, and to help you become a better person. Right now, we are discussing Chainz's book, which is called The Voice in My Head is God. We are currently going into chapter 8. Make sure you go back if you're interested in this book. We've already covered chapters 1 through 7. We're going into chapter 8. Chapter 8 is called Dos Cadenas. Me llamo Dos Cadenas, baby. Buenas noches. Bad choices. I was signed to Def Jam in the early 2000s as a group through Ludacris' Disturbing the Peace label. Me and my homeboy Dollar Boy had a group called Player Circle. We had a nice little thing going on. My rap name was still Tity Boi at the time. I knew some people over at Def Jam. Some of the people over there I liked, some I didn't. It was like the same as any place. You're not always going to like everybody and not everybody's just going to like you. I've always been cool with that. Me and Dollar were childhood friends, and I have been putting work into the rap game for a minute. At Player Circle, we had some hits, including Duffel Bad Boy, which featured Lil Wayne. The song actually peaked at 15 on the Billboard Hot 100 and eventually went platinum. The kind of exposure the song created allowed me a more intimate look into the music business and opportunity to see inner workings. I've always been a curious businessman before anything. If I'm going to be involved in something, I need to know how everything works and what everybody does. I'm talking down to the custodians. People would try to take advantage of you or talk over you if they believe you don't know what's going on. I have not and will not ever allow myself to be naive in any situation I'm working on. Performing Duffel Bag Boy allowed me the opportunity to polish my stage presence and showmanship. It was a time of growth for me. I started to understand my power as an artist and an individual and the ways I can change a room. I've always been a leader, and being around Chris, Ludacris, and Wayne started to show me that I could do things on my own. I had known I was a star by tightening up my stage show, started to take things to another level. I had a solid team around me, and I knew if I continued to build and add to my team, that, in words of my Virgo partner Swiss Beats, the sky is not the limit, it's just a view. In recognizing the direction of my fate, my intuition, my voice started telling me, you need to get about your record deal. That was the only way for me to grow and truly become the artist God created me to be. I assumed it wouldn't be simple, and I had no idea what that would look like. But one morning I woke up and called Chris and told him I didn't want to be on the label anymore. The general response I got was, you can't do that. You can't just get off the label like that. I was pretty sure his team thought I was looking to go sign with Cash Money because of my strong relationship with Wayne. But that wasn't my motivation at all. I just needed freedom, and my voice was telling me that it was time to become more independent and step firmly into my purpose. While I was grateful for everything that people at the label had put into our group, I believe it was time for me to step into something greater. I was told I need to pay $100,000 in order to get out my record deal. Part of me believes they asked for that number because they didn't think I had it. Maybe they had other reasons for asking for that number. Either way, I had it. I didn't have much more than that, but I had a little over that in an orange Nike shoebox at the crib. If paying was my only option, it had to be what it had to be. I paid $100,000 to get out the deal and agreed to give them a point on each of my next 3 albums. Now let me tell you, a point is essentially 1% of an artist's royalties. That may not sound like a lot, but it is. Let's say an album makes $1 million, then that 1 point is $10,000. This is in addition to the points distributed between the label producers and possibly anybody else who put a lot of work into the project. A lot of hit makers might get 1 to 5 points, and that's for producing a banger. To give away a whole point is definitely a sacrifice that would come out of my royalties. We currently live in culture where It's in vogue for people to say, bet on yourself. It's damn near has almost turned into a cliche. You hear that a lot in professional sports. So and so bet on themselves and didn't sign the deal. Well, I'm actually there and done that. It's a gamble, just like anything else. But if you are tapped into your inner self, you can mitigate the risk. In order to place the right bet on ourselves, we first need to know ourselves. In his book, Know Thyself, author Naim Akbar says, hold on, damn, I'm sorry, y'all. The chapter pages stuck together. Says, dimension of the self represents the layer of individual personal experiences that have occurred in one's lifetime. If we understand our souls as the universal core of life, that is the essence of our being, entering our particular life experience and life space, then our experiences of the lifetime represent our unique and special journey. The tally of my life experiences has created an inner well for me to draw from when I'm calculating any risk. If I'm tuned into that well in my inner voice, I already know the gamble will work out for me, even when it might not seem that way immediately. In the end, I'll always be right when I'm supposed to be. I went solo, started doing shows and making a name for myself as a solo act. I legit did a show in every state in the country from North Dakota to Florida. My reputation started gaining even more traction, and it didn't take long for people and labels to start reaching out. Every day a different label would contact my team, and every day I was sitting down with a different label representative. This was during the time when labels had recently started doing a thing called a 360 deal. A 360, what they call it in the industry, is an exclusive contract between a label and an artist. In the 360, a record label not only got a share of the artist's music sales, but also percentages of revenue from other ventures like concerts, merchandise, television appearances, or publishing. When I took these label meetings, I had already done my homework and knew exactly what I wanted to talk about. I had all the information ready. For me, I was really interested in seeing what they had and what they brought to the table globally. I was already a household name domestically as an independent artist. I gathered that from my blowing up inside the Chitlin market, which is where I made my first million. I did shows at nightclubs for 20, 30, sometimes 40, even 50,000 a night. Once I started to move outside the Chitlin market without a deal, I obviously knew I could be amplified if I had some creatine backing me. A label with some global pull. I like to call labels creatine because they add a little bulk to whatever you already got going on. They can't make or break you, but they can add something to whatever movement you already got. And I already had it. I just needed the world to experience it. I would go into these meetings and ask the labels what they had going on internationally and how they could help me reach a broader audience. I wanted specific details, not pitches. Labels would try to hit you with the cookie cutter pitch every time. I had to let them know that I was a custom nigga, so I needed custom presentations. During each meeting, at some point, the representative would start yapping about a 360 and how we could parlay that money to help boost my career this way or that. By that time, I wasn't really listening to much of what they had to say because I was piped up. I was turned up. I had leverage. I knew my value, and I wasn't trying to hear nothing about them having more access to my money or my brand. I had already done that dance. I had already left that dance with gold cups and t-shirts. My voice was guiding me towards something new. I'm not saying anything was wrong with how they approached their business, but I just wasn't interested. Everybody seemed to be offering 5 or 6 album 360 deals. God damn, I continued to pass. I eventually found my way back to Def Jam. Imagine that. We would go on to have 2 meetings. Honestly, I wasn't all the way present for the first one. It was more like a revenge meeting. I wanted to let them know I was still out here doing it big. I wanted to let them know I had stayed on top without them. But after the first meeting, something told me to get my ego out the way and not let my ego block any potential blessings. I took a second meeting with them and was more engaged in that one. I ended up signing a solo deal minus the 360 and minus the 5 or 6 album commitment. I signed a 4 album deal. Today, that deal has been fulfilled. When I signed it, I had developed so much leverage that I could demand that type of thing. I'm not saying I was so business savvy that I worked the system. I'm saying I had developed the kind of knowledge and leverage where it was my way or the highway. When I was taking those meetings, I was ready to walk at any point in time. I had paid Chris $100,000 on 3 albums to get out of my first Def Jam deal. I experienced the success of betting on myself. Ultimately, now I'm on my 3rd passport. The international aspect helped me become more of a worldwide name. As a solo artist, my stage moniker will eventually become 2 Chainz. I done heard 2 Chainz on different languages in different countries around the world. And it relates to the $100,000 I had to give up to be released from the DTP deal. And I mean this very humbly. I got that on me right now. Talk your shit, 2 Chainz. Talk your shit. Listen, man, I remember, here's something I never told nobody. I remember going to the Bounce. There's a club off of Bankhead Highway way back in the day. I want to say this particular night DTP performed. Ludacris, Tity Boi, I-20, Lil Fate, they all performed. And I remember after the club, after they performed that night, I went to my car and I look over to my left and I seen Tity Boi. He was like in a old school, some type of old school car. And he was just chilling. I said, damn, that's Tity Boi. He drove up here? You know what I'm saying? Like, then that nigga drove up here to the concert, you know what I'm saying? I just found it weird at the time, but you know, that's just what it was. He drove, I guess, to the show, but he was parked right there in the lot, kind of right next to me. So having it to say, I say that to say this, he would have never gone to where he's at now had he not left Ludacris label. And it was just, he walked in his purpose. He bet on himself. He paid the $100,000 to get out the deal, and here he is. He's 2 Chainz now. Yeah, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I remember watching him. I think I left early, and I went to the car, and I remember him sitting in the car. He was either rolling up or doing something, but I was like, damn, that's Tity Boi. You know what I'm saying? I remember, because I remember seeing him on the stage, and I remember looking at him on the stage. He didn't even look happy up there. He was just up there. But anyway, that was a dope chapter. Let me know what you think about the chapter. Let me know what your thoughts are. Was it right for him to follow his path and pay the $100,000 to get out his deal? Do you agree with him? If you made it this far, leave a fire down in the comments. And we are going into the next chapter. Make sure you stay tuned. We off to the next one.